Hello YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and welcome back to The Outsiders. Today what I'm going to be doing is covering off a technique, a tip and several little things that you can do in a particular situation. Let me explain what the situation is. I've been asked for quite a number of, well, for at least the last couple of years actually since I started doing the videos, for ideas to help people come up with adventures on the fly, help with the ad-libbing ability that several DMs possess, how do we do things. And I had to give it quite a lot of thought. And I realised that I used this technique when I was beginning my DMing career quite well, and then realised that I had the gift to actually do it without thinking after a period of time. So I'm going to share with you the technique. Now, for the purposes of this video, what I've done is I'm going to run it randomly. We're going to create a random small side trick adventure piece. Now, these small side trick adventure pieces probably are good for half a session's worth of play. Now that's plenty of time. So average session 2 hours, average session 4 hours, so 2 to 2.5 hours for these little side tricks, which is plenty good. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to count it as a third era product, or Pathfinder you could use it for, but it could be adapted for any fantasy game very easily with little work. Most of these little adventure paths are relatively low level, but they can easily be scaled depending on what the party level is at the time. It's easy enough to adapt them. So again, you can bear all those things in mind, and as it unfolds it will make more sense. Now I've also got with me to help me create a random dungeon, and again you won't be able to see this, I am going to genuinely do this, and if the video is well received I will do some more in future of these random adventures paths that we will create. I've got a D6 that's very small and a D6 that's massive. Now I will be using these from time to time through the video, and I'll explain to you what the steps are within it. Now, to create a random adventure, you need the following key steps. You need a hook, some sort of entrance, atmosphere, a setting of some kind, a map, a challenge, and clearly a reward. Those are key elements to creating something on the fly that you can add or take away pieces to. So without further ado, without getting too much into it, let's see what comes up. Now, for most of my main locations, I'm going to be using a D8, but occasionally a card or a description may require me to use my D6. Most of my stuff I put on card element or paper stock because it's easier for me to read off. So let's see which one of our initial hooks we get for the purposes of this adventure. A 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay, a classic beginning really. We've got the pitfall. As you're travelling, the ground beneath your feet gives way and you fall some distance and land on a pile of soft dirt unharmed. Now that could be individually, it could be a group, but it's a brilliant one to open up something that the players weren't expecting. And that could happen in loads of locations. It could even be in a city environment, and beneath, you might have been in a cellar and no one knew that something existed below ground, or several different ways that this could be used, and it leads into its own adventure. Very useful, particularly if you need. All these random adventures are great for finding a little respite at a key moment as a GM to recoup and rethink, but at the same time it adds its own little story, which is quite nice. So we know now we've got this opening that's appeared. So we've fallen into an opening. Now we need to know once we're down there, what do we find? What is the entrance that leads on to something more interesting? Now for the purposes of the entrances, what I've done is I'm going to pull them across. You won't be able to see them initially, but I will show you in a minute. Some sheets that can be cut up and used as cards. Which is quite nice. It's simple, it's very easy to do. You can do it, keep it by the side of your DM screen and run them yourself. You can even let the players get involved in it, which is quite nice, as we've been talking a little bit about immersion. But I tend to, for these ones, I tend to do it myself. I don't like people involved in my creation process, only the DMs. So again, we've got 8 possible bits and bobs that it could be. Let me just grab the sheets because they seem to be slightly out of sync, which is no use to you. So let's have a look, see what we've got. That's right, that's there, that's the wrong one. Do apologise, let's get that corrected. And let's see what we get, and I'll show you a little picture as well to go with it. It's very simple, you can just download pictures from the internet and then do whatever you want with them. But I do find the entrance is really important because, as simple as it sounds, it can set a little bit of what comes after the atmosphere and the tone. It just gives a little something just by the definition. I'm a great believer as well, and I have to put that in this video, that a little description is far more important than too much. Let the player's imagination do the rest for you, and it'll all make sense. Speak a little, listen a lot. So let's find out what we got. We've got 8 options in front of us. Let's find out. 6. So again, that's 6. So it's not this sheet, it's this sheet here. So we've fallen through what into some pit, and then whatever is in there, we've also got another hole leading down into the ground itself. So very simply, just to show you one of those charts, as you can see here, there's the hole, and you can see what they look like. So very simple little entrances. So we've got a hole that leads further down, so we've fallen into part of it, and then there's a hole leading away into the ground, or into a cave complex leading off. It's however you wish to describe it. So now we've got our entrance, we'll move that out of the way. And now, of course, we've got to find the atmosphere, which is one of the key components to set the initial atmosphere. And again, we've got 8 possible things that could set the atmosphere off. Now, we've got a 3. Solemn, reverent, holy. A feeling of awe comes over you as you enter this area. So this is great because you can take one of the characters aside, maybe a paladin or a cleric, and you can instill in them that there's something either very evil or very good about this location. Because remember, it may come across as good, but something pretty evil might be there, protecting it. So straight away we now have our atmosphere for our story. So let's just quickly recap. We have a hole, with a pit of some kind that fell into the ground, some sort of hole. We fell at an unknown distance. Coming to, you see another entrance or cave-like structure leading away. Immediately as you enter the structure, you have the feeling of awe. There's something either very evil or maybe very good that lingers within this location. So straight away we've already got something building here. That's quite good. I'm liking what I'm seeing. So now we've got to find the setting. So what exactly is the location? Exactly what is this going to lead on to? And what have we created? And again, I've got my little setting cards, and we'll find out what we get. And again, the D8 will do the job. A 7 this time. So 7. Perfect, makes perfect sense. The temple. This looks to have been a place of some worship, a long-forgotten temple. You can choose, of course, if you wish, to decide what alignment the temple is. I always think it's more dramatic to go away from the player's temple, but it can equally be good to throw in some bits, maybe where it is not an evil temple, but you've got the choice. If you want to random roll, just use a D6. 1 to 2, it's evil. 3, 4, it's neutral. 5, 6 is good. It's up to you, however you want to do it. But you then have a choice of what the temple is. So I'm just going to roll the big dice, could make a noise, so bear with me. It has made a huge noise, a 3. This looks to be a place of worship, for all you see is an altar. So the temple, the initial entrance to it will have some sort of temple. And now we move on, of course, now that we've got the atmosphere, sorry, we've now got the, we've now got the setting card. We know it's a temple of some kind, and we know that all that will be left behind at the very end is some sort of altar. So now let's show you my maps. Now, I'm not going to roll for a map. I'm just going to give you an example of the 2 sheets I have. Now, the way I do the maps is fairly simple. They can be randomly generated. There are a number of good programs, but I like, for these random little encounters, I don't use what I call gaming logic. Now, another video I will talk about gaming logic extensively, but when we talk about side treks, I tend to allow a few random elements into the dungeon design for a few reasons, but that'll be for another video. But for simplicity, the maximum you need for an encounter that's only going to last maybe a couple of hours, 2.5 hours, is at least only 6 rooms. That's really all you need. There's likely to be one main encounter in there, which is what we're going to go into, but you could have a couple of little minor ones, but that's how you decide to set it up. So as you can see, it's not a huge sidetrack, but it is designed to give the players some choices and some interesting things that can happen. And a lot of it you have to sort of work out on the fly, what's actually in there and where it would be placed for logical reasons. So my little maps are, and you'll see it's a little bit upside down because obviously for the purposes of this, you know, they are going to ultimately cut into cards. So you can see there's little things like that, little maps. And here's the other sheet I've done. It's easy enough to do. They can be cut up and then used. It's very simple. So there we have. So there we have a little map. Now once you have a map, it's got 6 rooms on it. And you know that's going to be the temple in this case, and you know that you're going to put the altar the furthest away point. So we've already got a little story brewing. We haven't had to do an awful lot of work to achieve that. And of course now we need a challenge. What's going to be the main thing that's in there still lurking? Now, the first thing that obviously we have to bear in mind here is the fact that, first of all, they found a pit or an opening of some kind that wasn't meant to be found. So we have to use a little bit of DM logic here, because that type of beginning means that certain things just won't fit the bill. But I'm hoping what will happen is, because I've done a good job of trying to make this as fairly random as possible, but still allowing more odds than not to work in your favour, let's make a roll. Now for this purpose, if something unusual comes up, like orcs or goblins, for example, just count them as undead. You know, that's as simple as it is because of the type of beginning it is. It doesn't have to be anything clever. Anything else will probably fit quite well. Could be laid dormant in there for some time. Let's find out what we get. We've got a 1, and it's perfect actually. It couldn't be any better because number 1 is going to be undead. So the great thing here that's worked out very well is it would fit very nicely. We've got a D6, we're going to find out what type of undead. And again, a bit of logic has to play in because you've got to work out how many players you've got. Let's make a roll. So we've got a 2. Again, that's good. That tells me straight away that we're looking at a very low challenge rating game here. You're talking about zombies. Be a tough challenge for a low-level group, but I like it. I would suggest what you do is at least put 1 zombie per player. And if you've got a very, very good group, then maybe half again. So you could be looking at 4 players looking at 6 zombies, 3 players looking at about 5. Great finishing encounter. As for the rest of the rooms, that's for you to decide what's actually in there. Now the key here is what's going to be the final reward for all their effort. What do they get out of this? And so again, little random charts, and let's see what we end up with here. And we've got the 8. So the final, I always like to have, for these random ones, I like to have a lot of fun with them. And I like to have things in there that are going to do pretty weird or wonderful little things that can be useful later. And it happened to bring out the carpet of flying. Now, that may not exist anymore, per se, in Pathfinder, but I still love it. So it's in my games because I just think it's a lot of fun. Now, also, it's not that easy to hide either. So it's actually very scalable because even if you're at low level, you look quite odd flying around on the flying carpet. So you can attract some pretty interesting attention. And who knows who owns it or wants it back. And the fact that this place was holy or evil tells you something. Now, if it was good, maybe the carpet comes with a protector of some kind. Or maybe it's a sentient, so maybe it's got some sort of lingering intelligence, or perhaps it's evil, and therefore it might act very randomly. So every now and again it just stops working. It's something to think about, a lot of fun. So there's a random dungeon for you, done very quickly. If it's something you like, we will revisit this again another time, and we'll do another one. But this is the way that you can quickly, using those 8 steps, generate something, and you can do multiple. I've worked out through this, if you think about the laws of averages, to actually work out that there are 8 of these, 8 of those, 8 of that. The combinations are fairly endless, even with those 8 little steps, and you can have a different dungeon or a different story very easy. And it can just be the respite you need as a GM, something to throw in, the players get interested at, and then of course it puts a bit of a time while you think through the next steps of what you're doing in your game. Anyway, I've been Sean Connors. This has been Outsiders. Till the next time, take care of yourselves and happy gaming. I'll see you again soon. Bye.